Hey, this is Rob, and you're listening to the Hidden Destination Podcast. Today is August 23rd, 2024. I'm sitting in Sauk Center at Jitters Java Cafe. I had to step outside because it was a tad loud in there. There's kids screaming. So I'm going to recap yesterday's journey, where I rode from Milaca to Melrose. That was about 75 miles with a little over 1,000 feet of climbing, and took about 6 hours. And managed to somehow maintain a pretty decent average speed, given the fact that I had a horrible crosswind slash tailwind, or slash headwind, for a lot of the ride. Yeah, I managed to average a little over 12 miles an hour, which, all things considered, given how significant the wind was pretty surprising. So yeah, it was a relatively flat route. I started out the day from the campsite at Milaca, and definitely could tell the skies were starting to get a little grumpy. The wind was starting to pick up a bit, but man, were the roads, like once I got off the highway there was a bit of a sort of unfavorable stretch, I'd say, for maybe a couple miles. Typically you hit that when you're coming into, towns with a population greater than 1,000. Sort of the main surface streets getting you into the town tend to be a little busy, but they also have a decent shoulder. So it was a bit busy, traffic getting out of town. I say busy, but busy compared to the rural backroads of Minnesota is like, a car every couple minutes. But either way, got out of town and then got on just some gorgeous backroads that were, and it was actually quite appropriate because the sky was starting to get gloomy. It was starting to get a little chilly. I had my raincoat on. It was actually cold that entire morning, and it started like for a good 45 minutes or so. There was just kind of a light trickle of rain, and it was nice. It was a nice change from the sun. It felt like fall. The roads were absolutely dead. They were just kind of like rolling country roads, and I was going through some like beautiful birch forest. It was great. It was a great ride. And then the rain definitely started ticking up a bit, and luckily, because I'm using my phone to navigate. Sorry, drinking some Jitters Java Cafe coffee. Since I'm using my phone to navigate, obviously when it starts raining pretty hard, it's I don't want to get my phone drenched. So really, luckily for me, as soon as the rain started picking up enough to where I had to put my phone away, there was a stretch that I would have been on Nature Prairie Road for like almost the remainder of, well, a good 30-40 miles or so. I'd say about 30 miles. And this road definitely lived up to its name of Nature Prairie. It was just more flat, rolling hills, a bunch of soybean crop, definitely some corn crop. Actually, there were parts of it that really made me feel like I was in in Indiana. So that was cool. So yeah, the rain just progressively started to get a bit heavier, and then once I was coming into the town of Ramey, which has a population. It's an unincorporated township, and once I got just outside of town, the rain just let loose, and so there was like one little gas station, or what seemed to be a gas station on the horizon, and I made my way towards that and pulled in just like literally just as the rain started teeming, and my plan was to just sort of bundle up the bike, protect the tent, just sort of get some things in order, get some water, but it just kept teeming. And so I looked at the radar and noticed that, oh wow, this is a giant storm coming through. And sure enough, it was like a 2-hour thunderstorm, like heavy rain. And so I thought it would be best to just hunker down there for a little bit. Ended up spending 2 hours, which was way longer than expected, but it was raining so hard. It was not really quite worth. It wasn't really quite worth going out and riding in it, especially on a road with some traffic. So this was the Grub and Pub, which was a combination of a bar, restaurant, grocery store, hardware store, gas station, like partially a casino. Like they had some like gambling machines there. It was quite interesting. Definitely was a bit of an oddity for the patrons and for the bartender. They all asked what I was up to, and kind of funny. They were all talking politics, and this one guy just had the thickest Minnesota accent I have ever heard. They're talking about Joe Biden having a body double, like all of the classic talking points. There was the whole these protests don't make sense. They're burning our flag. If they don't like our country, they can get the fuck out. And they don't like our country, but they love taking the welfare check. It was just it was incredible. But they were talking in their Minnesota accents, and there is somewhat of a juxtaposition of a Minnesota accent with conservative politics. I don't know if that's just me, but this one dude kind of had like a blonde mullet, like a bald eagle shirt, and man, his accent was just thick. It was so thick. He really talked like they were talking about the neighborhood and all the different folks in the neighborhood, and everybody's referred to by their last name. And they asked. So one of the guys looked at me, asked where I was from, and I was like, I'm from New York. Rode from New York. And he's like, oh, careful, this guy must be a Democrat. And I was like, don't really follow politics. And I was like, I try to respect everybody's opinion. But it was funny. It was funny. They were a good group of guys. A bunch more people came in prior to my departure, and everybody wished me well. And it was a nice little glimpse into rural Minnesota. So once the rain cleared, I ended up getting on my way, and had the wind just picked up like nobody's business, and it's so open out there that it was definitely a challenging ride. So I slogged it to Bullis, which is it was about 30 miles or so, and that's where I sort of transition routes from one of the sections of the northern tier to another of the sections. So it was nice. From there, you just hopped on rail trail. I hit the Soline rail trail till Albany, and then that transitioned into the Wabagon Trail, which I then took up to Melrose. And because I ended up chewing up about 2 hours, I got into town as the sun was setting. I thought a motel was going to be the solution for the evening, and sure enough, that was the case. It was a good move to grab a cheap Super 8, and then was able to get some groceries and make some food. So yeah, overall big day, but definitely a nice diversity of road and rail trail. One of the things that I've noticed with the rail trail is you can get into such a greater meditative state while cycling. The rural roads are great when you don't have cars passing by, but just being on a rail trail, it's definitely not as exciting, but you can effectively meditate and just sort of zone in, and it feels really great. So there's definitely a trade-off between the two. Obviously, like rural back roads with no cars and flat. I'm definitely a fan of flat. Is the best of both worlds, but yeah, rail trails are it allows for a deep meditation on the bike, which is what a lot of this has turned into. Which is just no music, no podcasts, no audiobooks, no nothing, just really dialing into the body, feeling your body on the bike, watching your mind, and watching your breathing. And it's amazing once you sort of get into that flow state, that meditative flow state, just how quickly time flies by, the miles tick by. And it's especially helpful when, you're dealing with some nonsense conditions, where you just sort of check out if the mind is judging, or the mind is resisting, or there's some resistance of mind due to the challenging nature of the conditions. Just being able to isolate that as an object of attention and just sort of dialing in on it as an object of attention, as a thought. And once you sort of objectively monitor resistance, or I think that is a huge key to endurance, is watching where the mind is and just keeping tabs on resistance. So it's a much easier thing to do when you have an environment such as a rail trail or a quiet road that gives you allows for a good quality of mind, or clarity of mind, maybe is the right term. So that's been a nice piece of having some rail trail. So all right, well, this is getting towards 15 minutes, so I'll end it here. In the next couple episodes, whether that's tomorrow or the next day, I do want to discuss my strategic, constructive, and mature use of nicotine while I continue this journey. it's been a really, really helpful substance. It's just so anybody listening, any of the parents listening, don't get concerned. I'm not smoking cigarettes. It's ingested in a pretty clean and effective way. The healthiest way to ingest nicotine. Think of it as caffeine. There's a lot of psychoactive similarities between the two substances. But I do want to sort of touch on how I've been constructively using that towards the end of the day, mostly for cognitive benefits and safety and focus, to be honest. So that'll be maybe tomorrow or the next day, but just a bit of a teaser there. So, all right. So from Sauk Center, Minnesota, I'm going to go get another cup of coffee and then get on my way. So until next time, ta-ta.